Hello there, welcome to the Saroy channel. Wherever you are in the world, loads and loads of love to each and every one of you. Get that glass of red wine, white wine, Coca-Cola, lemonade, or even coffee, tea or cocoa, whatever it is you drink, because I want to tell you I've got a fabulous story for you tonight and you don't want to miss out on it. But before we get started, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Click the notification bell and the thumbs up. And loads of love to you all. So let's get started with tonight's story. Dear Sarah and all your lovely listeners, my name is Julian and I grew up as an only child in the bustling, thriving metropolis of the Big Apple of New York City, on the Upper West Side, located in the borough of Manhattan in Lincoln Square. My family live in a stylish red brick apartment block in close proximity to Central Park. We had a pampered pooch called Muffin that required regular walks there. Half the time my mother carried the cute fluffy white toy Mix in her arms, as she was so terrified of her being torn to shreds by some of the larger, more intimidating dogs in the park. My father worked as a legal attorney in the city near Madison Square, often taking up some high-profile cases from highly esteemed clients, and so he brought home a lucrative, sizable income. He was a very clever man, and my mother was his complete antithesis, but in a strange way the relationship just worked, as opposites most certainly attract. My mother grew up very poor and impoverished, so much so that her family couldn't afford to buy shoes for her when she was a little girl, so she would go running around in her bare feet over the rugged countryside, frequently stabbed by thorny briars and shards of unsuspecting glass. She was born and raised in Tennessee, and had met my father when she took up a job waitressing in a prestigious New York restaurant. My father had been beguiled and bedazzled by my mother's fresh, unblemished innocence and pretty gentle face, with the added benefit that she was easy on the eyes, and reminded him of a gentle doe. He had swept her off her feet, like the quintessential knight in shining armour, and in a second my mother's life was miraculously transformed into a rags-to-riches love story. And the fairy godmother to their magical fairy tale was the hands of fate herself, as her timing was seemingly impeccable, for indeed without her masterful intervention, my parents' lives would have never crossed paths. My mother missed her beautiful mountain life in Tennessee that invited so many treasured memories of joyful, uncorrupted times, where the natural landscape had been her playground, and the wild animals her friends, for there were times she expressed such a longing to return to her Appalachian roots, for the mountains and the idyllic landscape were as much as part of her, as indeed the hair was on her head. My father, like any other loving husband, was desirous to make his wife exceedingly happy, and had surreptitiously brought her a charming cottage in the mountains as a gift, and a holiday retreat for the family. I'd never been to Appalachia before, and I falsely assumed that any place outside the vibrant city had to be incredibly boring and tediously dull. I simply adored the exciting buzz of New York, with the yellow taxicabs and the streets teeming with interesting, exciting people. I loved all the shops, the delicatessens, the coffee bars and restaurants, as they were always alive with a hub of activity, and I adored the enthused tones of people's excitable voices. All my wealthy friends went away on fabulously exclusive holidays, like skiing to Aspen, or places abroad like Spain, Portugal, Italy, London and Switzerland, while I was seemingly stuck with going to a mediocre, nondescript mountain town where nothing exciting would ever happen. Little did I realise how incredibly wrong I was about all that. So there we were in Tennessee, and I could see tears of delight welling up in the corner of my mother's eyes as we drove down a rugged country lane towards the delightful quirky cottage in the midst of the emerald green valley that was situated on a sizable plot of undulating pastoral land that had been managed for our family by a local hillbilly called Huck while we were away, and by the meticulous look of the place he had done an outstanding job in maintenance, and even little Muffin, who was perched on my mother's lap, agreed, for the little toy dog was wagging his tail furiously and yapping non-stop with delight. "Look! Muffin approves of our beautiful cottage," laughed my mother. Our jeep wobbled precariously down the rocky mountain road, basked in the glory of the morning sun that swept the valley in a cheerful light. We drove down the steep vertical driveway, heavily flanked by tall statuesque trees on the right-hand side, and overlooking exquisite mountain views, and a fetching lake that gleamed in the morning sun like a silvery jewel, reflecting the mountains and the trees that fringed its outer perimeters. It quite literally took my breath away, and I was completely bedazzled and beguiled. "See, I told you it was beautiful here in Appalachia," said my mother, giving me a big wink. "Aspen eats your heart out," she laughed. I was not willing to concede that this magical, enchanting place possessed any merit at all, but I could see there was something magnetically arresting about the mountains that were pulling at my heartstrings. All of a sudden our jeep drew up outside a delightful, whimsical cottage that looked like something that belonged in a magical fairy tale, and not in our physical reality. How could anything be so picture-perfect, I wondered to myself in private, but I wasn't going to express my thoughts to anyone, for I had put much resistance in coming here. I was hardly going to give my mother the satisfaction of admitting that Appalachia was, after all, pretty cool. My mother gasped. "Oh, Gordon," she said, giving my father a huge kiss on the cheek. "It's perfect." The cottage was old and charming, having stood the test of time, as even its walls were steeped in its rich, vibrant history, and that was all embedded in the foundations of the structure that was solidly built, with a stone facade complemented by whitewashed walls and large sash windows, with a colonial-style porch that overlooked ravishing panoramic views of the countryside. This exquisite cottage had belonged to a Tennessee artist from the 1800s, who made very little money during his time on Earth, but now his oils on canvas were highly sought after, as is so often the case, and now worth sizable amounts of money. It was easy to comprehend why this cottage had such aesthetic appeal and character, as the artist had embedded and woven his creative imagination, flair and passion into the very fabric of this cottage. Needless to say, the inside was as enchanting as the outside, as a local interior designer my father had recruited on my mother's behalf had transformed every room into a luxurious, airy sanctuary, using vintage, eclectic influences. It really was stunning. "Oh, my word," said my mother, hugging my father impulsively. "You couldn't have bought me a more magnificent present than this if you'd tried. This cottage is quite literally the most beautiful home I've ever seen in my life. It really is true. The best things do come in small packages." The following afternoon I was eager to explore the countryside, although I didn't want to appear enthusiastic at all. I was magnetically drawn to the steep mountainous wooded area because it was so spectacularly beguiling, as there were flowering bright pink rhododendrons, red buds, tulip trees, along with mountain hemlocks, birch, beeches and sugar maples, and so many more exquisite-looking shrubs. I entered this prepossessing sanctuary, mesmerised by the enchanting birdsong, and that was when I began to hear what I can only describe as a dreadful scuffle, as if someone was engaged in an altercation of some kind. It would seem that I wasn't wrong. "Let me go!" I heard a young male voice crying out indignantly. "Let me go! Let me go! Let me go!" "It's nothing personal, bro. We have to do what we have to do." "Are you going to kill me?" asked the petrified voice. "What have I ever done to you?" I crept closer to the sound of the muffled voices, moving surreptitiously behind a tree. I wanted to find out exactly what was going on. I could see two very strong and seriously intimidating men, young men, dragging a young boy whose arms were oscillating wildly like an octopus and his legs kicking out violently. It was clear he stood no chance in overcoming these powerful combined strength men, as it would have been like punching a brick wall. Completely and utterly useless. "Are you going to kill me?" screamed the young boy. "I need to know. You have to tell me." One of the men pulled out a revolver and pointed it directly at the young man, whose eyes grew as round as saucers and registered extreme terror. He began to shake and tremble, and tears poured down his cheeks. It was so dreadful to watch. "Please, please, please don't hurt me," he begged. "Please, no. I beg. Please don't shoot me. I'll do anything. I'll do anything. Anything you say. I'll do it. I promise." At that, one of the burly men pulled out a white T-shirt, covered with what looked like bright red bloodstains. "Put this on," he said, tossing the T-shirt to the terrified boy, who quickly, obediently obeyed. "What's going on?" he cried, throwing off his T-shirt and replacing it with a soiled T-shirt covered in blood. "Why do you want me to wear this? What's going on? I need to know what is going on." The man was still pointing his revolver at the boy. "I want you to sit up against the tree on the ground, understand? Now," he commanded. "Tie the boy up, Donovan," he said to his brother. "Now. Do it now." I watched in horror as Donovan proceeded to tie the boy up against the tree so that he would never be able to get away or escape. I was absolutely appalled. What in God's name was going on? "What are you doing to me?" the boy protested. "Please tell me, what the heck is going on? I don't understand any of this. It makes no sense to me. What have I done?" The man with the rifle said, "Marvin Watson. He wants you dead. I'm afraid that he's offered us big bucks to kill you, sonny boy. More than you can afford to pay us to get out of this mess you've got yourself into. And the man is minted, as you may well know." "Marvin Watson wants me dead?" asked the boy, looking bewildered. "Are you sure you haven't got your wires crossed? That's Noel Watson's brother, isn't it?" "The very same," said the large man. "He asked us to tie you up to a tree and to shoot you dead in the heart at point-blank range. He'll be coming into the woods shortly to inspect that we have done our job adequately. If you don't manage to play dead convincingly enough for him, he will shoot you himself in the head. We don't want your death on our conscience. We're not murderers, so don't judge us harshly for this, but we need the money desperately. Our mother requires expensive medical treatment for her cancer. We've not got any choice in this matter. We've given you the best chance of fooling Marvin for yourself with this blood-soaked T-shirt. We don't get paid until he sees that you're dead and he's satisfied with his own eyes. So he better not see you breathing, or you're dead. Do you understand? It's not my responsibility if you can't deceive him yourself." "I don't understand. Why does he want me dead so badly?" stammered the young boy. "You mean you don't know," said the larger man, looking perturbed. "But you always win the dirt bike mountain cross every single year. It's been 3 years in a row now, and Marvin's brother Neil always comes in second place. So Marvin wants the competition eliminated, and you're his competition, so his brother can win. I told you, it's not personal." "Look," begged the boy, "I'll do anything. You can tell Marvin I'll never enter the dirt bike mountain cross ever again. But please, please, let me go." "Marvin warned us that you would try negotiating with us to get out of this pickle. But sorry, it's no. You'll probably saunter off to the sheriff and dob him in, and he's not having any of that." "I won't say anything to anyone, I promise," begged the boy. "Look, my lips are shut. Do I look like I'm talking? I'm not a snitch, never have been and never will be." "I told you," said the man. "Negotiations are off the table." "So what are you going to do if I successfully play dead and Marvin sees that you never finish what you started? What if I got to the police after all this is over? You could end up embroiled in this whole mess yourselves and become accomplices to murder." "Why should we care?" said the man. "We'll have been paid off, and that's all that matters, because all we care about is that my mother gets her money for her cancer treatments. Besides, if Marvin ends up in prison for attempted murder, he only gets what he deserved. He's a nasty piece of work anyway. We're guilty of nothing but tying you up, and that's all. And we'll also deny that it even happened." The men turned around to leave. "Please, please, I beg you, don't go. I'm so afraid. I mean, if you leave me tied up all night to this tree, a bobcat will get me. Can you not see? I'm a sitting duck for a wild animal. How could I ever fight back?" "That's the risk we have to take," said Donovan. "We'll come to free you from the tree tomorrow afternoon, once the dirt bike race is completed and Neil has won his prize. I'm very sorry that we do have to do this to you.
We both are sorry. As I said, it's nothing personal. We promise you that. Let's hope, like Daniel in the lion's den, you can sew up the bobcat's mouth. We'll keep you in our prayers tonight. Good luck." "When is Marvin coming?" asked the young boy, looking terrified. "Any minute now," said the tall man. "So you better start practicing playing dead."
I was absolutely appalled. I couldn't believe what I'd just witnessed. Could it be real? I had arrived in a small mountain town and observed more drama in a few minutes than in a lifetime of living in New York City. It was like I was engaged in a movie unfolding before my very eyes. I was disgusted and revolted that someone wanted this poor boy dead, just to eliminate his brother's competition. Could people be that pathetic and shallow? Could they be that small-minded? All of a sudden I heard someone coming. Oh my goodness, I thought. It must be the man, the Marvin fellow, to check whether the boy is dead. I hope the boy can pull this off, I thought. I wasn't convinced by any manner of means that feigning one's own death would be easy. I frantically searched for a large stone to throw at the man. I literally had to do something to help the boy, if things did get out of hand, which was highly likely. I watched a hefty, thuggish-looking man, rather a rough diamond, I have to say, with a face like a robber's dog, walking towards the tree where the young boy was tied up, trying desperately to act dead. From what I could discern, he was doing a great job, but could he fool this discerning man? Marvin squatted down on his heavily muscular legs while he studied the corpse, very deliberately, with one of his large hands ominously fiddling with the revolver in his holty. I was so terrified that my heart was beating so fast I could feel the vibration of every single heartbeat, and my forehead was sweating profusely, so much so that water was dripping down my face like heavy raindrops. "Sorry, mate," said Marvin, pulling the revolver out of his holty. "You're not going to be winning any more competitions any time soon. Not at my brother's expense, you're not. And by the looks of you, I would say you could do with another bullet to your head, just to be sure. I knew these dudes would have trouble finishing you off. When you want something done properly, you need to do it yourself." "Stop! No! You can't do that! No! No, you can't!" I began hurling stones at Marvin's back. All of a sudden, the shocked man swiveled around, looking for where I was hiding, and began firing indiscriminately in my direction. "I can see you lurking there behind the tree," he shrieked. "You are a dead boy." Marvin began running around the trees, searching for me frantically. In a trice, he had stealthily tracked me down, pouncing on me unaware like a lion dragging down its prey. And he dragged me, kicking and screaming with all my life, to the tree. I was now seated next to the boy, and I was almost certainly going to have a bullet put in my head in any second. I could hardly believe what was transpiring, as everything seemed so surreal, almost as if this was a part I was playing in a movie. Yet I knew in my gut that this was no screenplay. Yes, it was really happening, and it was happening to me. "Who the heck are you?" said Marvin, pointing his revolver at me. "Answer me, boy. Who are you? How do you know James Turner?" "I don't know him," I said. "I just care about human life. And you can't go killing someone just because they beat your brother in a race. You know how pathetic that is? It's ridiculous." "It's ridiculous, is it?" said Marvin, running his hands suggestively down his revolver. "It's ridiculous that I want Neil to get first place. It's ridiculous that I want America to win in the sports. It's ridiculous, is it?" "Yes, it's ridiculous," I said. "It's not human to want to kill someone. You're not human." "Not human, is that right?" Marvin snarled. "You're not from around here, are you? You sound a little hoity-toity and stuck up. Where you from, boy?" "New York," I said. Marvin spat on the ground in disgust. "That's what I think of New York, posh boy," he said. "Any last words, posh boy, because I'm going to blow your skull apart in any second, so think quickly on your feet. And if you've got a god, you better pray hard, because I'm about to blow your brains out.
I nearly died of shock when Marvin suddenly fired a couple of bullets only yards away from me. He clearly meant business. I began to scream at the top of my lungs so incredibly loudly, and the boy beside me joined in. I think he'd realised that the game was well and truly up, and that his clever masquerade had clearly not worked. I believe our screams were so vociferous and so ear-piercing, they travelled through the forest like an ambulance siren, alerting anyone in close proximity that someone was in serious trouble. And somehow the forest heard our call. Marvin laughed viciously. Ha 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 ha! He was heartily enjoying scaring us half to death, but I was in no doubt he was going to kill us. I watched in horror as he reloaded his rifle, and his intentions were very clear, as I perceived a very stiff tightening of his jawbone, and a very intentional squint in his eyes as he focused on the job at hand. All of a sudden, I heard something bolting through the woods, and the thundering sound was so ominously menacing that even Marvin was distracted by the major commotion. "What the heck?" he said, looking towards the trees. "What the heck is that?" A large silhouette or dark shadowy form came charging towards us like a rocket. It loomed ever closer, and the largest creature you have ever seen materialized before our very eyes. I realized at once that this was the legendary beast known as Bigfoot. Could this drama unfolding before my eyes get any more outlandish or bizarre? The critter stopped dead in its tracks, and I was gobsmacked by the gargantuan size of this thing, as it was built like a giant. It was agile and powerful, towering at about 8 foot tall, 700 pounds, and 3 foot wide across the shoulder area. The creature was female. She possessed small breasts and was covered in long, flowing auburn hair with blonde highlights. Her pyramid-shaped head flowed into her shoulders seamlessly, and if there was a neck, it was very well covered. In my opinion, her face was so human, it was almost uncanny, and I could see that in seconds her very dark, intelligent eyes had immediately assessed the situation, and she was not amused. I could see her look at Marvin with an expression of distinct distaste and unequivocal rage on her face. She was not amused, far from it, in fact. Marvin looked terrified. His hands began to shake and wobble, and he began to fire precariously at the creature, but she bounced out of the way with every single shot. She then snatched the revolver from Marvin with a brute force, throwing it into the thick brush, with a look of revulsion on her face. Then she picked up Marvin, who she despised because in her eyes he was the most grotesque thing she'd ever seen. She lifted his body into the air, impaling his central torso by thrusting it through the jagged branch of a tree. For a second, Marvin was still conscious and gurgled with blood that bubbled up in his throat, and then he died, with his eyes glazed over, staring at us like a dead fish. It happened so quickly. Too quickly to believe it was real. The female Bigfoot turned her attention towards us for a moment, and she had such a matriarchal look in her eyes that seemed so warm, congenial, and kind. It was almost like she had a grandmother spirit about her, and it was as if she was trying to say, "Are you all right?" We were not afraid, for it was clear that she meant us no harm. Her demeanour couldn't have been more gentle. She then turned around to walk away, and we called after her, "Thank you, thank you." And she glanced at us one more time very briefly, with a warm, congenial expression on her face, and we watched her glide away into the heart of the woods. I quickly untied the boy, and the two of us embraced, hugging each other with relief, even though we were just strangers. "She saved our lives," I said. "That beautiful, majestic Bigfoot, the creature of legend, saved our lives." "That's for sure." "But so did you," said the boy. "If you hadn't stuck out your neck for me, I would almost certainly be dead, and that's a sure thing. It was really gutsy of you throwing stones at Marvin like that. I'm not sure I'd have had the same kind of courage. If you hadn't distracted him, I would almost certainly have a bullet in my head right now." "Anyone would have done the same," I said. "Are you kidding? You're a hero. By the way, I'm James Turner. I'm Julian Jeffreys, I told him. He deserves all he gets, I said in disgust, regarding Marvin's dead corpse that was impaled on the tree limb with extreme dispassion. Let's leave him out here for the bobcats to eat, shall we? Come with me back to my cottage. I'd like to introduce you to my parents. To cut a very long story short, James Turner and I became the very best of friends, and we still are today. We met in the most unlikely of circumstances, so indeed the hands of fate also played a hand in our acquaintance. It must have been only a few days after Marvin's death, when I was rummaging around in the attic of the old cottage, where I found a painting that had belonged to the dead artist that had once resided in our home. It was almost like a gift. I also discovered it was worth a tidy sum of money, so James and I decided to pay an impromptu visit to Donovan's mother, the poor lady who had cancer and required expensive treatment. The pale, sickly-looking, emaciated woman invited us into her house, and we offered her the painting, telling her it was to cover all the costs of her cancer treatment, and she was astonished and dumbfounded by our kindness. "But why? I don't understand. Why would you help me? You don't even know me," she asked. "You'd be surprised the lengths that some people will go to in order to help those they love," said James. "You mean my sons?" asked the lady. "Do they have a hand in this?" "Of course they do," said James, in a manner of speaking. Imagine the shocked looks on Donovan and his brother Teddy's face when they returned to the house to find James Turner and I seated with their mother having tea together very happily. Their mother was wearing a thrilled expression on her face. "Look what these lovely young boys have done for me," said their mother. "They've both given me this painting to cover the cost of my cancer treatment. Can you believe their kindness?" "Yes, that is very kind," said Teddy. "This is the legendary James Turner," said the mother to her sons. "The champion on the dirt bike. You know the one. And this is Julian Jeffreys. He brought the artist's cottage as a holiday home with his family." "We know James Turner," said the boys, nodding awkwardly at James. And to me they said, "Nice to finally meet you, Julian." Once their mother was out of earshot, the two boys sheepishly approached James. "Sorry, bro," they said, "about everything that happened back in those woods. I don't think I can forgive myself for what happened." "Forget it," said James. "It's over and done with now." "How did you manage to escape after we tied you up?" asked Donovan. "When we saw you were gone, we did fear the worst and were very aggrieved. We realised we'd gone way too far, and we are truly sorry." "What happened to Marvin?" "We saw him impaled on the tree, and so we surreptitiously moved his body to a place where he could be found, so his family could mourn his loss. His body was in an appalling, dreadful state. Never seen anything so grisly in my entire life. What the heck happened to him? He was such a mess." "That's very nice of you," said James. "What I mean is that you moved his body. Personally, I would have left him for the bobcats to enjoy. Come to think of it, he might have been too bitter for them to stomach." "I can understand your grievances," said Donovan. "But what happened to the man? Seriously?" "It was a bear," said James. "Thought it might have been," said Donovan. "That was quite some atrocious way to die. What about you? How did you escape?" "You wouldn't believe me if I told you," said James. "Thanks again, bro," said Teddy, "for helping my mother. I mean, you have no idea what it means to the both of us." "Oh, believe me, I think I do," said James. "I really think I do. You went to great lengths on her account, way beyond the realms of what is reasonable." "You know the funny thing about it all," said Donovan. "Marvin's brother came in 8th on the dirt bike race. So good job Marvin's not alive to see it, as he went to so much trouble trying to eliminate his brother's competition. Next time he'd have to eliminate 9 boys. 3 weeks after this curious event, we were on our 2-hour flight to New York, and my mother turned around to me and said, "Sweetheart, what did you think of Tennessee and our cottage in Appalachia? I meant to ask you about that." "If you mean, was it as good as Aspen?" I asked. "That's exactly what I mean," my mother asked me. "It was way, way better," I said, "with lots of drama
Just the way I like it. My mother smiled. Didn't I tell you, dear? Appalachia has a way of getting under your skin. You can't let go of it. I know I can't. And I see it's had that effect on you too. So there you are. That's my story. Wow, what an incredible story. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Until next time, goodbye and good night.